previous episode, you were talking about how Ethereum and the DAO are coming together, and this decentralized autonomous organization is maybe going to open the way for some smart contracts and a whole bunch of other interesting applications. And that demonstrates one of the ways that they got funding down the chain is through Bitcoin. And this is one of the things which maybe makes Bitcoin still important, even though perhaps it's not as high tech as the later cryptocurrencies which have been based on it. So of course Bitcoin is still the brand name. People know Bitcoin more than they know cryptocurrency, and so it still has this network effect, and at least for the moment. And of course, there are a few other factors involved. So you were saying that there's something interesting in the exchanges in Mexico.
Yeah, well, look, this is all fresh from the CDMX meetup in Mexico City last night, and just being in that space and hanging out and listening to some of the directors of the Bitcoin exchanges in Mexico. They mentioned that in the last 2 months there's been a huge increase in changes from pesos to Bitcoin, and they seem to believe that that's because of the Bitcoin halving that's coming up on the 11th of July, which is the block reward dropping from 25 Bitcoins per 10 minutes per 1 meg block to 12.5 Bitcoins. This effect, which previously led to very high increases in the Bitcoin price,
reportedly, like people claim that it was in 2013. It was the halving in the reward that brought about this huge rally up to $1,000 or more. But I think there were many factors involved. There was also, there were things with MT Gox. There were bots that were apparently manipulating the price, and there were a few things going on. So maybe it wasn't just the halving that led to this huge increase.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that nobody knows or no one can predict the price of Bitcoin. Even technical forecasting doesn't quite fit in the Bitcoin space. But either way, the halving's going to affect supply and demand of Bitcoin, and people are expecting. There's a general feeling that it could be a trigger for the outbreak in price. Yeah. So
because of course at the moment, every 10 minutes there's 25 Bitcoins being created, and the price is remaining reasonably constant. So if that supply, if that increase in supply goes down to 12.5, we'd expect the price to rise.
So the exchanges are seeing an inflow of buying now, which is anticipation and in anticipation of the halving. But there's a lot of people hoarding Bitcoin as well. So it's really hard to say how many Bitcoins actually exist, because a lot of people know that the early mined Bitcoins are missing in the ether, but not in Ethereum, in outer space.
Right. Okay. On broken hard drives that were thrown in the trash or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So it's really hard to work out how much a Bitcoin could rise in this halving, or how much they're worth anyway. But something that was very apparent yesterday is when the appreciation from the Ethereum space is that Bitcoin is the front door, and without people buying Bitcoin with their fiat currency, there wouldn't be a way for people to buy any other altcoin, whether it is Ethereum. And now, if without buying the Ethereum, you can't get the DAO. So people are literally changing money to Bitcoin, Bitcoin to Ethereum, and then Ethereum to the DAO. Direct. You can't jump directly, so it's like the money's got to flow through the ecosystems.
I probably told you once on my first Bitcoin, I had to buy it using Linden dollars, the currency of Second Life. So brings back some memories there of painful processes to try to buy cryptocurrency and thinking, what good is this thing anyway? If I have to go through so many jump through so many.
See,
hoops.
I always thought you had Bitcoins for for play online poker. Or is that why? Is that why you got them?
Well, that's why I bought my first 2 Bitcoins. So I had 2 Bitcoins. I bought them for like $20, but it ended up costing me like $25 because of all the chains and all the supply chain. I
bet you felt ripped off.
And then I did. I absolutely did. Like at every point, I'm paying like 10%. To get my, to get the Bitcoins eventually. And then I put 1 Bitcoin on, I can't even remember what the site was called. I guess it was just called Bitcoin Poker or something. But that site was hacked. I lost that Bitcoin. Yep. The other one sat on my hard drive and I forgot about it till, because my laptop broke and I forgot about that until years later and pulled it off and I was like, there's just a $700 Bitcoin on here.
Looking good.
Yeah.
No, I don't have such a roundabout way of buying Bitcoins, but I think it was actually from one of the conversations between us years ago. The reason why I bought Bitcoin, and that was in November 2013, and I saw the price. Literally, it takes a day or two. Like, it was a very slow process to even get an account on an exchange, and then to watch the price go from 250, 280 to 350 to 500 within weeks or within days. It was super fast.
Yeah, that'll awaken your gambling spirit.
I just felt like this isn't right. How come I could have bought a Bitcoin yesterday for $250 and now they want 300 and something? Like what? Like this site must be bullshit. And it wasn't. I just came in at the time that Bitcoin jumped like 70 times, and I watched. And I was buying at the bottom, I was buying at the top, and I'm buying now. So, the Bitcoin price doesn't really worry me too much because. Yep. I think this halving is going to show that when you want to buy Bitcoin, there might not be Bitcoin there to buy at the price you thought you could probably get in for.
Yeah. But what about you were saying that maybe you think that Bitcoin could change its function into being something more like a big settlement.
Okay. Well, I'll explain why. Well, firstly, it's got to do with the mining halvings, like the critical point here. Because if you're running a computer that's mining Bitcoin at the moment, you're earning X. After this halving, you're going to be earning half X. So if it seems expensive to run the air conditioning and the electricity to run your miners and the computers and then the maintenance for the system, and now you're going to be receiving half the reward, only half the income. For the same amount of output, you might decide not to run your miner anymore, and this is going to be a problem because we already have a problem with Bitcoin where its rose, the number of transactions have lifted enough that it's creating a little bit of a backlog because Bitcoin is limited to something like 7 transactions per second.
But hold on, because the number of miners doesn't actually matter.
This is true.
Because when the number of miners drops down, the difficulty will drop down to match it, and it'll meet an equilibrium.
Yep.
So it's not going to mean that transactions are going to have more problems being processed just because of the halving.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I think the backlog, if it's a problem now, it's going to be a problem later as well. Where it's going to become interesting is a way to get around that would be to increase the transaction cost of individual transactions if you want to jump the queue, because obviously a transaction A to B that has a $5 transaction fee opposed to maybe like a cent turbo fee is going to get priority and is going to get transacted. So I think there's going to be like this characteristic with Bitcoin. If you want to send something like $2 to a friend, then you might have to wait an hour, 2 hours, or I don't know, longer,
Yep.
depending on how many transactions there are. But if you're an exchange and you need to clear out funds or do like a bigger transfer of bitcoins, then you might not be concerned about spending an extra few dollars and getting priority to have that done within the next half an hour, within the next 10 minutes, as opposed to waiting to the next day or something like that.
Yep. But the thing about this is, I have to wonder. In this case, it would be a case of severely limited or reduced functionality of Bitcoin, because right now, or at least sometimes, you can send micropayments using Bitcoin, and it's very effective for it. Whereas in this case, it wouldn't be very effective or as effective for micropayments. So that reduces the utility of Bitcoin, and I would have to say, is this going to reduce the value of Bitcoin in the eyes of its users, and therefore reduce the price?
Yeah, well, I think under those dynamics, it should receive like a price drop. I mean, there's a lot of alternative coins that do a very similar thing to Bitcoin, that are possibly superior in many ways. However, Bitcoin, I mean, you touched on it at the beginning of the episode, Bitcoin, it's got the brand, and now it's got the infrastructure where if you want to buy another coin or partake in another crypto ecosystem, then you're going to have to transfer your cash, your fiat currency, into something. And I mean, the exchanges are already there that are accepting money for Bitcoins, and they're going to spend, they're going to buy and sell Bitcoins at whatever the price is, and they're going to buy and sell, whatever percentage you're able to afford when the price rises or when the price drops or whatever. So I think it's that kind of first to market network effect that's going to hold Bitcoin, at least in the short term, up the top of the crypto pyramid. What's going to happen after that? Well, I mean, it really depends on whether the backlog is going to be a big issue or not. I mean, at the moment, it looks like it could be, but Bitcoin's still very small transaction wise. I mean, if everyone starts doing microtransactions with Bitcoin, you're going to have to wait hours on end.
Yeah. So the other thing about this is the nodes. So of course there's Bitcoin Core, which most nodes are running, and that's got the 1 megabyte block size limit there. So that means that's what's causing the problem of these backlogs, these transactions which can't be processed because they can't fit in the data. Then you have Bitcoin Classic, which we talked about this on a previous episode, and I said I didn't think Bitcoin Classic had much traction. I was actually I'd understated what it had significantly. I thought it was a few percent. It was actually around about 15% of the total nodes. With Bitcoin Classic with the 2 megabyte block size, but since we had that conversation, it's dropped down significantly. So if you go on like xtnodes.com, you can look at all the nodes, and you see around a few weeks ago, May 16th, May 15th, the amount of Bitcoin Classic nodes just dropped right down, and you can see the trend over the last couple of months has been steadily going down, which doesn't look too positive for Bitcoin in the long term, because if people aren't willing to accept Bitcoin Classic, which by the way, it basically has no modifications to it other than the difference between 1 megabyte block size and 2 megabytes block size. The only other difference is it's got the code built in there that says once Bitcoin Classic reaches 75%, a supermajority of the nodes, then it introduces a hard fork. That is, it creates another blockchain and just ignores what Bitcoin Core is doing. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. at this point because it's the classic nodes are just going down and down. Slowly.
Okay, so to put this into real layman terms, what you're saying is that there was an option for Bitcoin to go down another road where it could process double the transactions, where it could possibly be superior because it's going to double the transactions, otherwise stay technically exactly the same as the other Bitcoin. And from a user perspective, nothing would change at all from like an experience of processing Bitcoins.
Except that transactions would be faster. Yeah.
And it looks like that's not going to happen.
That's right. That's what it looks like.
So, I mean, this comes back to Bitcoin being what it is. There are alternatives that are better, even inside Bitcoin, and and it's like the decision to change is so difficult that Bitcoin's going to stay slow and bulky. Anyway, so
and at least in the short term, it's it's got too much momentum in the wrong direction, I guess. So, who knows what can happen? I mean, it's been resilient so far, so maybe things will turn around. But I don't know.